What's going on, everyone? In this week's lesson, we're going to have a little more drop D fun, right? And specifically, we're going to be looking at power chords and ways that we can add major and minor harmony to them. So what do I mean by that? Power chords are basically a root note and a fifth. There's no harmony there. And if I play the third note, that is root, fifth, octave. There's no note in there to make these major or minor. These chords just sound powerful, hence their name, right? So if I were to take a chord progression, say like D minor, A minor, C, E, if I were to arrange that from a power chord standpoint, I might do something like something like that, right? Depending on the song or whatever you're playing. Now, again, that's fine, but we might want a little more flavor in our playing. So how can we take those chords and make them major or minor chords? So if I look on the D string, right, and I go 1, 2, 3, I play the first 3 notes of a minor scale. This note is the minor note of that D minor chord, right? So if I put that into the chord, now I get a nice minor power chord shape, something easy to play. And if I were to move that, say, 5th position, power chord, if I take my pinky and put it on 8 or 4 half steps from the root note, there is my minor power chord. Right? It's got a little more something to it than just a thick, powerful sound. Now there's your minor chords. Now we can do the same thing with a major perspective. For example, if I go to the D string and I play the first 3 notes of the major scale, well, there's my major third. And again, if you don't know your interval theory, that's fine. For now, this is where it is. You can feel the uplifting brightness there, right? So I put that note on top of the chord. You just can't help but smile, right? It becomes very major, very bright, okay? Now, if I want to apply that to the other shape, same thing. I can go to 5th position, my power chord. Now before it was 4 half steps for the minor. If I go 1 more half step, 5 half steps, there is my major chord. And again, now the brightness is brought into that chord. I have now transformed my power chord into actual harmony, major or minor. One thing I like about these kind of shapes is that obviously on the 4th string, on our D string, some movement there. I could lift up that pinky and I have some melodic movement. This way, if I am playing a very stagnant, strummy style chord progression, I can add a little movement to the chord. That's all we need to get going here, all right? So same thing, but now I'm gonna do it on the low string. Now I have the 3rd fret, octave, from before. So this is the 3rd of the chord, okay? So if I go like this, 3, 5, 7, in this tuning, I'm gonna get what we call a first inversion, which is just the fancy name for the 3rd being the root note or the bass note, not the root note. It's just having the 3rd on the bass, all right? So if I put those 2 shapes together, now all of a sudden I can come up with nice static parts. Now, something I talk about a lot in my lessons and on my channel is putting the chord scale or mapping out D minor, right? Power chord scale, but now I can turn all those into the appropriate major or minor chord from that key. And it's okay if you don't know it, it'll be tabbed out, you can look at it, and eventually you can dig into the details. So I get this nice right? And that's very musical in itself, and we're putting together these ideas right away. Mapping out our fretboard, seeing things, and allowing those new patterns, new shapes to ideally come up with some new ideas. All right, that'll be transcribed in the tabs down below. I'm not going to get into too much detail here. Okay, so let's put this to use a little bit, right? Let's say I wanted to take this back to that intro chord progression we started at the beginning. G, right? How can we do that? We did it before, we just played these little power chords. Well, what if I took that D minor chord and I played, right? And then I took that A chord and I played A minor and I played, that sounds nice. And then I can stay right there. In first inversion. Okay, now I get this part. So right there, you can see there's the little melodic movement on the top. It just adds a little bit of motion within your part, right? Without adding all this extra flurry of things going on. It keeps the part simple, but interesting, right? So I've arranged D minor to here, 12th position, 12, 12, 15. A minor, typically A is 7. Minor would be 7, 7, 10. First inversion, go up the minor third. 12, 14. Okay. C is the 10th fret in drop D. I play the major shape. G would be 5, major. First inversion would be 9, and this shape would be. Okay. So on the instances I'm using the inversions, I'm using the little motion on top of that, right? Cool, right? And lastly, let's put some of these ideas together. Part 1, part 2. We're not writing songs here, we're just putting examples together, right? So let's do something like this. Right? Just a little example there of how you can put some of these ideas together like we've spoken about. One thing I do want to point out is, depending on your style of music that you're playing, the genre, right? We might, as a guitar player, want to play just power chords. We might want open position chords, or we might want something in between, right? So as guitar players, it's good for us to have all three of these in our back pocket, right? So that chord example, D minor, A minor, C, G. We now have 3 ways that we can apply that to the guitar depending on what style we're playing. Maybe we're layering guitar tracks, who knows? And there you go. All right, so hopefully you guys dig that. Some fun drop D stuff, expanding on our power chords, right? Turning them into major minor chords. I know we skipped over a lot of the theory, but I don't want to get bogged down in a lesson like this. We're just dumb animals here. We can just learn frets and jam along and have a good time. All right? So down in the description below, you can find a link for the tabs. And as always, let me know what you come up with. So until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.